All right, it's time for one of my first follow-ups. I did get a couple of questions about my Cube i7 review. The first question that we're going to investigate: can you charge the Cube i7 on another voltage than 12 volts? My unit easily lasts 5 or 6 hours on the battery. People are going to want to use it for longer, and they want to know whether they can charge it on 5 volts. So the first thing we're going to do is simply try to charge it at lower and lower voltages and see what happens. So I rigged this up. I got a power plug that I just ripped off a power supply. I'm monitoring voltage and current. Actually, now we're doing current. I'm going to vary the voltage with my power supply there. And we're going to see at what rate it charges, because that has also been a question. And if it can charge from a lower voltage. So let's just plug it in. I've been running a benchmarking thing to just see if I can run down the battery a little bit. Like it's at 80% now, so it should be charging at maximum speed. I think the power plug goes in here. And we immediately see it's actually charging at 11 volts and 1.25. Oh, it's actually going up. That's interesting. Yeah, it tries to pull 2.5 amps. Let's just increase the voltage a little bit. So it's at 1.5 amps, and then now it starts to go to 2.5-ish. I think what the unit is doing is the same as what some mobile phones do. So some mobile phones, they try to charge at a higher rate. For instance, they try to charge at 2 amps. And if they measure that the output voltage of the power adapter just goes down too low, they recognize, we're dealing with a low power charger here. I should reduce my charging current. I think that's what's happening here as well. So I think we can safely say, and this is also something I measured earlier, even at maximum loading, so the CPU is actually at full power now, it's charging at full power, the unit will never try to charge with more than 2.5 amps at 12 volts. So that is roughly 30 watts. Now if we reduce the voltage, let's just see at what voltage it just stops trying to charge. Yeah, at 10 volts already. So this unit definitely doesn't charge at 5 volts. Have to use a 12 volt power supply. And I think I also know the reason. It's actually pretty simple. There is a 7.4 volt battery pack inside the unit. There is only a buck regulator, and buck regulators, they can only step down the voltage. So it means the input voltage always has to be higher than the battery voltage. So a 7.4 volt nominal battery pack has a maximum voltage of 8.4 volts. So you expect that the minimum charging voltage is always going to be higher than about like 8.5 or 9 volts. And in this case, seems to be about 10-ish. Yeah, if I go slightly over 10 volts, at 10.5, it does try to pull like half an amp. So I think the minimum, the cutout voltage is about 10.5 volts maybe. The second question I got was pretty interesting. I never really thought about this, but it only has one USB output that you can really get to from the side. So here, this USB 3 on the go port. It's really limiting for like a computer on the go, because usually you do kind of want, for instance, in my case, I would really like my non-Bluetooth wireless headset and a USB stick, so like a USB flash drive, to be plugged in at the same time, and I just cannot do that. So it would be nice to have like a second or maybe even a third USB port on this unit. So the question was basically, is it possible to fit in a new USB port, and preferably a full-size one? So I just got a USB port here, and I started looking just around in the chassis, and at first glance, the answer is yes. Yeah, I think so. Like looking at the case here, the most obvious location where I would start is actually at the top. It would be kind of awkward. So the top is actually this side of the unit. It would be kind of awkward to put in to put a USB port at the top, just plugging in stuff. But on the other hand, it's easy to get to. The reason on the top is the most obvious way is on this side. So on the actual I/O side, there is no more room. You would have to get out this buzzer motor, and you could possibly fit one in here, but then you also have the problem that on this side especially, there is only metal to work with, and if you it's anodized aluminum, and if you scratch the anodized aluminum while trying to make a hole for a second USB port, that's pretty destructive, and it's not gonna look good. Similarly, on this side, there's not actually enough room, unfortunately. The battery is just too big. A full-size USB port like this one, it has some pins that protrude extra, but even a right angle port wouldn't fit. So the most obvious place is somewhere like here. And it would actually fit. I have not actually done this yet, but for instance, what you can do is you can just remove this plastic. This plastic is not overmolded, it's just held in with tape and glue. So you can actually get it out. So you can partially get it out, fit it in, and then have a second USB port. And that's pretty awesome. Now, of course, aside from physical fitting, you also need the signals. And that's kind of the hard part. And that's why I haven't actually done this yet. So first of all, just to be sure, there could fit like 2 extra USB ports could fit here. So that's definitely possible. However, if we actually look around on the board itself, I looked at the pinout of the chipset, and all the USB ports that are directly on the chip, the USB host controllers, are used. So the USB 3 one obviously goes to the USB on the go port. The second one goes to the Wi-Fi chip, and then the third one goes to here, which goes to the USB dock accessory. So what I would say, one of the options is to actually get this plug here. This plug goes off to there. Get this out, put in a new FFC, and hang off, like go all the way to here, and have a little USB hub board, little board that just splits the USB in two. One goes back to here. You can just hot wire that up, and one of them goes to the extra port. And I think that will work. Unfortunately, I don't really have the time or the inclination to design a board such as that to fit in here. So I don't think within the useful lifetime of this tablet that I will actually do the extra USB port hub. But it's definitely possible, and if there's any way to do it, that will be the way to do it. Now there's another issue with the USB port, and that is the maximum current consumption. This flat flex, where the USB comes from, these pins are actually only rated up to 0.5 amp, or I think 400 milliamps or something. So you do get the problem that if you stick in one of those USB 3 high-speed sticks that have a very high power consumption, they're unstable. They like disconnect all the time. I would actually get the power, I guess, directly from the battery here, just because the contacts are so conveniently placed. And I think that would actually solve it. So that's how I would attack this problem. If I'm going to do it, it's going to be a while from now because I'm very busy with other stuff. And the last big question I got was, how is the pen functionality? How well does it work? How responsive is it? Some people are saying that there are big calibration problems with the Cube i7. It's actually really good. Like if I just start a new file here in Photoshop, the cursor is like if I move this speed, it's maybe half an inch behind my like the actual point where it says my pen is. I found that it tracks very well. It tracks better than my Galaxy Notes, both of them. It tracks very well. It has very good pressure sensitivity. Like right now, making a paper thin line, and when pressing down, it just works extremely well. So I'm extremely happy with it. The extra button works. So now I'm erasing a drawing. And that works. It's just generally good. Palm rejection is good. So if I remove the pen, then normal touches are registered. If the pen is in the vicinity, and the vicinity is really up to like 2 centimeters from the screen, it just doesn't register my palm at all. It doesn't automatically start doing other stuff that I accidentally press with other parts of my hand. So this is just a great drawing tool. It's easily on par with the first generation Microsoft Surface. That's saying a lot, because that's I've worked with that. That's also a great drawing tool. So I'm hugely impressed, really, with this as a Wacom tool. Thanks for watching, and keep the questions coming.
Okay, so in the last video, I opened up my new tablet with a 2x7 stylus. So overall, looking really good build quality, really good specs, MacBook Air Sleep performance. I could basically do anything on it that I could do on my previous laptop and more. However, excuse me.